You have a product and you have multiple pricing options for it. However, among those options, you have a specific plan that you want people to choose, perhaps because it has the highest ROI. So what are some techniques that can help you guide people toward choosing that specific option? That's what we'll look at in this video. And I'll be using pricing plans on a web page as an example, but once you understand the underlying principles, you'll be able to apply those principles in any context where you just need to influence someone to choose one option among a set of options. So the first thing that you can do is strategically structure the perceived value. So whenever people evaluate an option, they have trouble evaluating it in absolute terms. Instead, they evaluate it in relative terms, i.e. by comparing it to the other options. And because of that comparison process, you can be strategic about how you allocate the perceived value among those options so that one option emerges as the clear winner. Now, when businesses create different pricing plans, there's a natural tendency to allocate an equal amount of value across plans so that each plan is equally appealing. So the lowest plan has the fewest benefits, but it's the cheapest priced. The highest plan has the most benefits, but it's also the most expensive. So each plan would have its own benefits and drawbacks, and a lot of businesses try to make those benefits and drawbacks proportional across the plans. And it sounds like a good common sense approach. However, it's usually the wrong approach to take. You shouldn't be structuring your plans with an equal level of appeal for two main reasons. First, that structure will make the customer's decision a lot more difficult. So if there's no clear winner among the options, then customers need to exert more cognitive effort to choose an option, and that makes them more likely to either give up or postpone the decision, both of which are bad. The second drawback of that approach is that if each plan has an equal level of appeal, you'll be creating a greater amount of cognitive dissonance. So when someone chooses a plan, then that means they're giving up benefits from another plan, and that loss is painful. So if other plans are very enticing, you're intensifying the amount of pain that people feel when they choose an option. So therefore, albeit a little counterintuitive, you can make people more likely to choose an option by deliberately lowering the perceived value in some options. By incorporating that inequality, people can more effectively compare those options, and their decision becomes easier. So not only will people have a clear winner to choose, but on top of that, they won't be giving up as many benefits as they would have been. So that structure minimizes the amount of pain and cognitive dissonance that people feel. So let's walk through an example. Suppose that you're a consultant and you need to give a business a quote for a project. Instead of offering them one price for one set of tasks, you could create three different options. So you start by creating two different options for the consulting. Plan A, which is on the smaller side, and Plan B, which is on the larger side. Now, your goal is to get them to choose Plan B because that's more work for you and more revenue. However, you still want to include Plan A just in case the larger project doesn't fit within their budget. So at this point, once you've structured those two plans, you can increase the relative appeal for Plan B by adding Plan C. So this third plan can be an extremely large, very expensive project. Essentially, it's Plan B, except with a very few expensive add-ons within it. So it's a similar large project, yet a lot more expensive. And with this new option, you achieve two primary benefits. First is that some people, some businesses, might actually still choose Plan C, that extremely large, expensive project, which would be good for you. But second, and more relevant and important to our context here, with Plan C, you create a comparison point for people to judge Plan B. So if Plan A and Plan B are very different, it's really hard to compare them and figure out which plan would provide the most amount of value for the money. However, because Plan C is similar to Plan B, yet worse in regards to the overall value, people perceive Plan B as the clear winner. So they're naturally guided toward that option. And there's a lot of research from Professor Dan Ariely to support this behavior. So now that you know how to structure the perceived value across your plans, let's look at another method for guiding people toward a specific option. And this second technique involves the placement and positioning of your target plan. Where should you position your target plan among the other options? And the answer is usually in the center. So research shows that when people need to choose from a list of options, they're more likely to choose a central option. So for example, if you look at supermarket data with 4 rows of products, 71% of people choose products from the middle 2 rows. Now, why does that happen? Well, whenever we're contemplating a set of options, our eyes are naturally drawn toward the center due to a concept known as the central fixation bias. And at that point, we still need to view the other options. So depending on how those options are displayed and laid out, we might look to the left, view those options, look to the right, crossing over those middle options again, looking to the right, or the top and bottom, depending on how the layout is. And in the end, we'll bring our eyes back to the center for balance, and perhaps going back a few times contemplating the options. But it's a pretty quick and simple process. But if you count all of the specific eye fixations within that process, you'll notice that the central options capture the highest percentage of your gaze. So your eyes started with those options, and whenever you reverted back and forth between the left and the right, you needed to cross over those central options. And because of those frequent fixations in the center, you trigger a feedback loop known as the central gaze cascade effect. The more that you look at an option, the more that you tend to like it. And the more that you like it, the more that you tend to look at it. So that back and forth feedback loop biases your final choice toward one of the central options. So that was the second method, positioning your target plan in the center. So the third option is adjusting the visual nature of those target plans. And based on research, you should visually distinguish your target option from the peripheral options. For example, if you add some type of visual contrast, such as a different color, size, shadow, or all of the above, that contrast will help capture even more attention to the option. And that'll do four things. First, it'll increase the strength of that feedback loop that we just saw. So the more that people look at an option, the more likely they'll be to choose it. And that visual contrast will help capture a greater percentage of their gaze. Second, it'll increase processing fluency. So that option will pop into their mind more easily, and they'll be able to envision themselves choosing that option more easily. And the more easily that they can picture themselves choosing that option, they'll misattribute that ease to a desire to choose that option. And third, depending on the contrast, you can influence people to view that option as a default option. So research shows that people are substantially more likely to stick with default choices because it reduces the need to put forth mental effort. If an option has already been pre-selected, people feel less obligated to think about the decision. And similarly, fourth, that visual contrast could also reinforce a social norm that most people choose that specific option, especially if you accompany that plan with a label of recommended or most popular. So as humans, we all experience a powerful innate urge to follow the herd. So if you convey the idea that most people choose that target option, then you guide people toward that option. So that covers a few different methods for guiding people toward choosing a specific option, structuring the perceived value, placing the target plan in the center, and adding visual contrast to your target option. If you want a deeper look at the research behind these principles, or if you want to learn more pricing techniques, you can click below to download my full PDF on the psychology of pricing.